Hey everyone, this is Chidwick for OctopiPoker.ai, and today we're going to be talking about the trainer. I've used trainers so much throughout my career. I find it to be probably the most fun way to learn about poker, and also the most intuitive. So if you're new to studying poker, I think it's a great way to start. If you know how to play poker, you know how to play against the trainer and get real-time feedback on your decisions. So with that said, I want to give you a few tips that might help you to get the most out of your trainer experience. So I'll navigate to the trainer here. So my first tip for playing against the trainer, if you want to structure your study in a way where you're learning new heuristics and kind of identifying like the patterns of how to play in a strategically or a theoretically robust way. I always recommend starting with a common spot and a wide range spot. So for example, button versus big blind at 50 big blinds. Reason I say that is, first of all, having a wide range helps you identify the broad patterns that you're going to see over and over again. What kind of cards are good for one player, bad for the other player, what cards you have a big range advantage or a nut advantage on, stuff like that. And by choosing the wide range spots, you'll learn things that you can apply to a lot of different situations. Another reason that I recommend doing this is that the outputs for a wide range spot are much less sensitive to the starting ranges of the players. So you can see here, if we click on the players, this is a button opening range. Obviously, in real life, people's play styles vary. One guy might be opening 58%, one guy might be opening 47%. You can see the optimal here is 53. But it's not going to have a huge impact on the strategies you see if they're not opening king six offsuit here, or they are opening 9-4 suited or whatever. You'll still learn a lot of things that can apply to the spot. Whereas in a narrow range spot like a 4-bet or something like that, where maybe a third of their range is one combo, because it's supposed to be very frequent. If they don't have a balanced strategy, or they're not very accurate with their pre-flop ranges, the output for post-flop can be completely different. Tip number 2. So I guess I'll go back and say that for as an extension of tip number 1, that playing the same spot over and over is going to really help you to find patterns in the strategies, and kind of deep diving one situation here, button versus big blind. I think that's a great way to learn. You can see I made a mistake by not blocking the river here. Kind of a big mistake. That one's a mistake too. So I guess it wants the one big blind lead. We get raised. Let's look him up. So you can see how you get feedback as you play, and it's just super fun to play these spots. You'll play both sides of the hand. And I think playing one type of pot for a bunch of hands, and then kind of analyzing your mistakes and seeing if there's anything that you consistently do wrong, is a great way to kind of level up your theoretical knowledge of a situation. My second tip is to have another type of session with the trainer where you're replicating your playing experience. So this is going to vary if you're an online player who plays a bunch of tables. Maybe you're making every decision in 3, 4, 5 seconds. And you're just looking to have the best kind of first instinct about what's going on as possible. Whereas for me, almost all of my play is live poker with shot clocks. So I often train by paying attention to the timer in the corner, and I try and get through my thought process in 30 seconds or less, as often as possible, or at least kind of know where that threshold is. And for replicating your playing situation, I like to do surprise me or complete hand at any stack depth, any position. And this will just give you kind of a more realistic practice of what you're going to face in game. And this will be another way for you to identify kind of what mistakes you make when you're playing quickly, what mistakes you make when you're kind of facing a new spot every time, new situation. I also like to kind of get creative when I'm doing this type of training or study, and force myself to play the trainer maybe when I'm tired, or kind of replicate real life situations, maybe have some distraction, whatever you can do to make your learning happen in a similar environment to what you'll face in game. I think that really helps you to be able to execute what you learned and make those strategies stick. Tough. Not worth very much. Let's hope he shuts down. Okay, we're out. Take it. Oh, looks like I should have mixed calling about half the time there against a good opponent. Okay, tip number 3 is to create a structured thought process when you're going through a hand. It doesn't have to be exactly the same time, but if you have certain things you think about that you can repeat when you're playing, I think that will lead to you being able to think clearly in the moment when you're in a high pressure situation. So maybe the first thing you think about is the range that you're up against. I think he's in the low jack, so he's going to have the offsuit broadways. He's going to have maybe ace-8 off plus. He's going to have most of the pairs, etc. Let's call this time. We can think about how the board interacts with our range, how the board interacts with his range. Basically saying as many kind of, if you can verbalize it too, if you can say as many kind of true things about the situation as you can in your kind of allotted time that you want to be thinking through the situation. I think that's a really good way to kind of structure your thought process and be able to then identify when you make mistakes, like what part of your thought process tripped you up. So here I think his range is much stronger than ours, just flattening from the small blind. The board doesn't really favor me. I wouldn't have any leads. So I'll check. We can see that was right. Facing the small c bet, I think I would definitely continue with a heart in my hand, but feels a little bit weak against this early of a position. And you can see here that continuing, it is a pure fold with my combo, but would only lose 5% of a big blind to continue. So that would be a reasonable continue, maybe if I think this guy is too loose or I have a good chance of taking away the pot on a later street. Maybe he's very passive, something like that. So thinking through your thought process in a consistent way will help you be able to repeat it at the table, and also allow you to identify what went wrong when you do make a mistake. Which brings me to tip number 4. So tip number 4 is probably the most important for learning about poker, and that's to analyze your mistakes. If you've followed tip 3 and you've kind of gone through your thought process, maybe even verbalized it, you'll have a bunch of things that you can check to see if one of your assumptions was wrong. If your assumptions were wrong, then perhaps that stems from a true feature of the player pool that you play against on a regular basis. And maybe it's not even a mistake. Maybe even you would want to play more hands like that. So I think looking at the ranges that that the players are playing, and if you say to yourself, I really don't think he's value betting these hands, or I really think he's over bluffing in the games that I play, so maybe I've made a fold that I got a mistake for, but I think that it's probably just a good exploit. And in that case, it's still good to know kind of where the thresholds are and how much of a mistake you would be making. These EV differences are a good indication of how big your deviations are. But it might not be something you want to adjust. On the other hand, if you have if you kind of got the assumptions right, but the strategy wasn't what you expected it to be, that tells you maybe you should kind of go in and look at the spot in a bit more depth. Maybe compare this board to some other similar boards to see if they would have played like you expected, or try and figure out, look at the ranges, look at kind of what classes of hands are being targeted by different bet sizes, etc., and try and kind of update your mental model of the spot to more accurately reflect the strategy kind of that would be recommended by whatever your assumptions are. So I hope those tips are helpful and that you have a lot of fun playing with the trainer. I know I do. And I'll see you next time. This has been Stephen Chidwick for OctopiPoker.ai.